And in order to maybe internalize it and pick up a new skill or try a new technique, we can't do it at 10/10. So, as we were describing with JD, slowing down to 9/10 of your capacity or 8/10 of your capacity, and really being technical about how you're doing these techniques, and then getting proficient with it, and then adding speed to it.
Hi, this is Eric Wood, and welcome to Gas On Bike Up. This week we're talking to Chip Spalding. Chip is one of the owners of the N2 National Endurance Series and also an owner of the Yamaha Champions School. We start our conversation this week by talking about endurance racing, how to get involved, and some of the unexpected benefits you get from participating in something like an endurance series. In the second half of our conversation, we move on to rider coaching and how that applies to riders not only at the beginning level, but all the way to the very top professionals. It's a wide-ranging and interesting conversation. We look forward to having you along for the ride.
We're going to jump right into the endurance thing, right?
Okay.
This has value to all racers, right? I mean, it's a lot of track time. Tell me about kind of endurance racing, why you guys formed the series, and why you think it's an important thing to offer people in the U.S.
Yeah, N2 took it over, or started promoting it back in 2018, and at the time, endurance was struggling. They did a race at Roebling, and 5 teams showed up. Imagine watching a 4-hour endurance race with 5 teams.
Imagine financially trying to run that.
It's not very good, right?
Right.
And so N2 got involved and started promoting the series, started getting sponsorship for it, and building a purse, and just been growing it, as each year. And this last year we had over 130 unique teams come out and race with us, and everybody's enjoying it, having a great time, and we love it.
So huge amount of growth. So what are the foundational principles? Like, what are the goals? What are you guys going after when you're trying to build this thing?
We love endurance. We feel like it's an integral part of club racing or racing in general. With motorcycle racing, it's such good training. You get an enormous amount of time, not just track time or time on the bike, but race time. You have to do 10 sprint races to get as much time at race speed racing as you do in a single endurance race, and it's fun. You do it with your buddies. It's a community thing. You get 3-4 of your buddies together and you go racing and you share the cost, which helps with the cost, right?
For sure.
One motorcycle, one fuel bill, one tire bill. You put it in one van. You drive it to the racetrack. And everybody, it's a great time. It's the community aspects of club racing, which is the best part of club racing.
No doubt. So I think perhaps one of the biggest challenges of why people are afraid to get into it is like, man, what do I got to do to my bike to make it a competitive endurance bike? Like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money doing all that stuff. Like, what are the bare essentials that someone would really have to do to be able to just start and have a good time with it? You know what I mean? What's the baseline stuff to be competitive?
If you're going to run a full endurance bike, right, you got to run quick change stuff, front and rear, and fuel tank with a quick fill.
Let's just talk about what that looks like. What does actually adequate quick change stuff look like? Like what kind of components you got to buy? What's it cost? How hard is it to install it? Like what's a good source for it?
It kind of varies, right?
Sure.
From the crazy factory stuff with the captive sprockets and the wheels and the stuff they run in World Endurance, which is crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Or there's a lot of simple stuff out there that's readily available to the general public. Stuff Fast Frank makes a fantastic quick change stuff, which usually is just a bracket to make the brake caliper captive, ramps for the spacers to sit in, captive spacers, and it's workable quick change stuff and relatively cheap. Full kit for most sport bikes is less than $3,000.
Okay. I mean, I know personally, been riding a ZX10 racing, and I did Daytona 200 was the last big endurance race, right? Solo endurance race, but last one I did, and I put that stuff on my ZX6 at the time, right?
Yep.
And it made changing the wheels so much easier. Man, I just put on everything now, and it's a few $100 to make that rear caliper hanger captive.
Rear caliper hanger, a ramp,
and the little
spacers.
It's like boom, boom, and it's like, God, I never want to fight with that ever again.
Absolutely,
you know?
yeah. You pull the wheel out and the caliper falls off and the spacers fall down and you got to go chase them. No.
So that's like
I put on all my race
$200
bikes.
bucks, you know what I mean? And so being more specific on the front, like, what are the things guys do? I mean, do you have to play games with, like, making sure your brake pads don't fall out? Or, like, what are the little tricks you do there?
Sure, yeah. People will run magnets inside the caliper pistons to hold the
That's
pads.
pretty cheap, right? You can just epoxy them in there.
Epoxy them in there, yep. A dedicated quick change axle where it's threading in. You don't have a nut on the end, making it so the calipers will bump out of the way and the fender will stay in place.
Now, how is that done? Because I've seen, like, you see that here. Everyone's got that, right? And you watch them roll the wheel in, and the fork lowers to go whoop whoop on the way in. So, like, how's it done? Like, what's the physical mechanism that's in there?
They'll have a set of ramps at the bottom that guide as the spacers go in. They close the forks so that the rotors drop into the calipers, and then the fenders are on brackets that are on bearings that are attached to the bottom of the fork leg. Yeah. That's it. Pretty simple.
What's it cost to do a basic setup for that? You know what
I mean, I think you can get front and rear for less than $3,000. And that includes axles and all that stuff.
If you need the axles, you take the axles out of it, it gets cheaper, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can run cheaper and cheaper stuff, and a lot of times people do a 4-hour endurance race on a single front tire.
For sure.
You don't need to change the front, just depending on how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole.
You mean Daytona 200? I know that there are definitely some private teams who
absolutely going to do one front tire. 200 miles, yeah, for sure.
I mean,
I did
that once. I wasn't very happy with the last 15 laps, but but we made it. You know what I mean? It didn't end up on my head.
Yeah,
so
just slow down a little bit, right?
Yeah, which is one of the harder things to do for a racer, but
especially at the end of the race.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just bolt-on stuff, right? So obviously you can take it from a few $100 all up to a few grand, right? And get yourself to a point where it works, right?
Sure.
The rear wheel stuff, I mean, pretty basic. Fuel tank is a little bit more involved.
A little bit, but I mean, you could run a stock fuel tank with a dry brake, so it's just welding in a plate, and then you buy a dry brake from a company called Redhead. They do a male and a female side of the dry brake, so you could do quick gas, or you could expand the capacity of the tank. Sure. So a lot of people will go with a bigger tank so that they can run a longer stint.
Again, next level, right?
And then you have people buy world endurance tanks that are all aluminum and double dry brakes and stuff like that. So you can go
fill the whole tank in 4 seconds, right?
Yeah, you can go as deep as you want to go, but you don't necessarily have to go that deep to win at a club race level.
But those baseline Redhead parts, so like maybe $600-700, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then you just got to find a welder that can weld the flange in
weld
there,
the plate so it can bolt in there,
and go from there. So I mean, realistically, if you had a sacrificial tank and you had the parts, you could probably do it for $1,000.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. So. And then we also have another class in the N2 series. We call it the relay class, and it's meant to get people who are not racing endurance into it. And in that case, instead of running one motorcycle and coming in and changing fuel and tires, wheels, you run multiple motorcycles. Rider A comes in on his motorcycle, stops, takes the transponder off Rider A, puts it on bike of Rider B. He goes out. And then you're not sharing motorcycles. You're using your own stuff.
The quick change transponder is a little easier than the quick change tire. Yeah,
it is. And we pay a purse for that class too. Yeah. And it's to get people. Me and 3 of my buddies, we came here to do the sprint races, but we're going to get together. We're going to do the endurance race. And man, that was a lot of fun. And next year we're going to build an endurance bike.
Cool. So now we're looking at it and say, man, okay, obviously lots of track time, right? And that's
race time, not just track time. We get track time. We could go ride around. We could go ride around at the track day and get track time, and a lot of people do and spend endless hours lapping away with no progress. But this is race time,
and it's amazing to me how you add a green flag to the whole situation and a little element of competition. It doesn't have to be crazy. Like most endurance racing, at least from what I've seen, right? It's not cutthroat. You're not talking about, like, guys don't go smashing through and knocking people over. And we're like, it's a different temperament to some of the racers there. And so it's an opportunity to get some track time and not be so crazy about it. But at the same time,
it's still a race.
It's like there's published lap times, right? And there's some ego involved. And you're like, you want to do better. And it's like, it's because it's so measurable, I think that your motivation to learn and get better and of course learn this. There are some top riders that do endurance racing. From what I understand, Josh Hayes just signed on to do. I mean,
Josh Hayes, Chris
good as it
Paris,
gets, right?
Cody Wyman.
These guys are no joke.
Yeah,
guys are no joke.
Pretty good.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to learn there. Something that we talked about pre this discussion here was that it's an interesting situation where sometimes riders, they get to a point, they start fiddling with motorcycles a lot. I know I did this for a long time in my career where I said, I tried to make every problem the bike's problem. And everyone goes through phases of that, right? But when you're riding endurance, and I go back to my mentor that did this, when I was coming up through the pro ranks, Dale Quarterly was the guy who was teaching me, right? He was my reference point of how to try and take my racing to the next level. And Dale was really good friends with a guy named Randy Renfro, old school guy for guys who don't know. Randy was a top national guy, as was Dale, right? Dale was the last privateer to ever win an AMA Superbike National. Randy was a national champion and in a couple different classes, always a front runner. The one thing that was really different between Dale and Randy is Dale was 6'3" and 195. And Randy, we're saying, was maybe 5'3", 5'4".
Yeah, I think you said 5'6", but I'm not giving him that credit.
And 140 pounds, right? Just totally different sized human beings.
Yeah.
And these guys together did the Suzuka 8 hours. And so, and not everyone has that degree of differentiation, but like every rider has different preferences and different setups they like. And it's a really valuable educational experience I've found to have to get on and adapt myself to the motorcycle. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Right, yeah. You're always in traffic, right? Endurance races are typically, it's not a full sprint. You can't go your 100% pace because as a rider, you couldn't survive. You gas out. The motorcycle wouldn't survive. The equipment, the brake pads, the clutch, everything wouldn't survive. So the pace is a little bit slower because you have to do it for longer. It's not your motorcycle. So different controls, sometimes with an endurance tank, you got this big tank you got to work around. And so as a rider, you have to change your riding style. You have to adapt yourself to the motorcycle. You have to compromise what you normally would do. You have to be more of a technical rider about how you're riding this endurance bike.
I mean, one of the things that I found when I stopped fiddling with the motorcycle constantly was that there came a point where I said, okay, listen, the bike's doing this, and I'm out here for 40 minutes, whatever the stint is, right? Sometimes up to an hour, and I can't fix it while I'm on it. Like, I can't adjust preload on the back straightaway. That isn't going to work. Or certainly change springs, right? So now it becomes, okay, so what's the bike actually doing wrong? And I think critically about this, and I say, well, how can I adjust my body weight on the motorcycle? How can I unweight the pegs a little bit? How can I get the bike turned a little bit more and take load out of the chassis, or use body English to help put weight on a front end that's a little bit too stiff to me.
How can I change as a rider to make this bike work better, not depending on mechanically making the bike better?
And when that happens, sometimes you get a foundational change in the way you approach riding, and that, wow, now something happens with my bike, and I don't go try and fix the motorcycle. And we talk about this all the time, right? This thing right here, this is by far the most valuable suspension component. You have more effect on the motorcycle than any clicker or any spring you can ever do, right? So, and it makes you really understand what you're doing on the motorcycle more and be more of a problem solver than someone who's angry about a bike that isn't working right.
And being an adaptable rider, because one of the absolute truths in this sport is that something's always changing. And you think about an endurance bike with a big gas tank, a lot of fuel. Let's say it's a 24-liter tank.
Man,
right? Beginning of the race to the end of the race.
It's got to change the way it handles.
That's 40 pounds. A 24-liter tank is 40 pounds. So that bike is 40 pounds lighter from stock.
It's a different trip through the chicanes in the first lap to the last lap, right?
The tires go from super grippy where you can just hammer it to garbage, right? The cord's showing at the end of an endurance stint. And so do you think you go to the same brake marker every lap?
Wow.
Do you think you get on the gas at the same time every lap?
So
no, it's constantly changing. So being an adaptable rider and learning how to change, move your body around, use the brakes and use the gas differently to make that motorcycle work. That's constantly changing over an endurance race is just infinitely valuable as developing yourself as a rider.
Really neat stuff. Now, of course, you may get to a point where you're doing this endurance stuff where you realize you need to make some changes, but you've reached the ceiling of your knowledge level, right? And now you need a little bit of help. So we'll kind of transition to our next phase of this, right? Chip helps run the Yamaha Champions School. I run the Penguin Racing School. We've both been helping riders for a long time. And so I think it's worth just mentioning the point that rider training, right? I think there's perhaps somewhat of a little bit of a misconception, is that it's mainly for new riders, right? Yeah. Now, new riders absolutely need rider training, and to have those foundational principles kind of ingrained in you early, super important, right? But that happens at all levels. Let's talk about that some more.
Sure. Look, I know how to ride a motorcycle. I'm out here doing track days or I'm club racing. I know how to ride. Well, I don't need training. I just need to send it more. I need to be more aggressive. I need to brake deeper and get on the gas sooner.
You do, maybe.
No.
But
no.
Well, you do.
No, like I actually kind of do. But you can go pretty quick on a motorcycle without kind of really knowing technically what you're doing. Riding a motorcycle is pretty intuitive. I mean, it's basically the same skills that we teach our 3-year-olds how to ride a bicycle, right? It's pretty simple sport. It's pretty intuitive. You can go pretty quick without knowing what you're doing, but in order to get really, really good at it,
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, but it's all kind of anchored in the same foundational, basic fundamentals. And if you understand those fundamentals and you're conscious of them, and then you're working with somebody who can help guide you along with those, it makes everything. You're quicker, you're more confident, and you're safer.
And you might notice, like, you might consider us to be competitors, but it's like, I look at us more as to be like, we're all aiming for the same goal. Like, we want to have the motorcycle riders in the world be more proficient. You know what I mean? Because when they ride better, they enjoy the sport more. When they enjoy the sport more, they come more often, they invite your friends, it grows the sport. That's what this is all
about. They buy more bikes, they buy more parts. Eric and I have been in the industry for ever and a day, and neither one of us want to go get a job working at Walmart or anything. So we like it when people buy motorcycles and motorcycle parts and tires and everything else. So
and it's everyone teaches differently. And it's part of another reason why I encourage riders really to sample different
other schools, right?
schools and things that are going on, because the way one coach or instructor delivers to you may not speak to you, but the way that someone else does very well may do so.
The message has to resonate with you, right? And there's really only one correct way to ride a motorcycle. There's variances.
Yeah.
But it's really...
There are foundational principles that can't be violated.
But the difference is on the emphasis. You may emphasize one aspect of riding more than we do, or key code or something like that. And then there's messaging.
Yeah.
How one person says how we use the brakes and how somebody else says how you use the brakes.
Truth is truth. And physics is physics.
Truth is truth and physics is physics. And we can't do any better. But how we describe it is different. So I'm with Eric. We encourage people to get as much education and training and coaching as possible. Brandon Paasch came to the school a couple years ago, came out to Jersey.
Yeah.
And somebody had paid for him to come because they wanted Brandon to coach with them. And but they wanted him to use our coaching methods, and totally understood. And Brandon came and did the school as a student for 2 days, and I asked Brandon after the 2 days. I said, "Well, did you pretty accomplished racer? Did you learn anything?" And Brandon said, and I love this description. He said, "I'm doing everything that you guys are teaching. I'm doing everything that you guys are describing. I just wasn't conscious of it. I didn't know why I was
100%.
doing it. And now that I understand it, I can do it better, and I'll be able to communicate that to whatever crew chiefs I'm working with."
I mean, a future episode that we're going to have here for sure is, we were talking about Josh Hayes, right?
Yeah.
Someone that great amount of respect for both of us.
Pretty decent motorcycle rider.
And a great guy. Josh Hayes does kind of an amazing thing where he's here racing, yet he is a rider coach for many of the top professionals in the paddock. And that sends a message. It says, you've got guys like Tony Elias and Richie Escalante and Rocco Landers and all these other guys who are unbelievably talented riders, yet who have a coach to help them along and move their careers along. And perhaps even sometimes it's reminding yourself of things you already know but aren't applying, right? Because there's such a vast array of tools, and we all who race or ride, as fast as we can, have the ability to flick on that switch and get that red mist and lose our minds momentarily
yes.
and forget things we already knew.
Yes.
And so it's just a fantastic thing to do for everybody. I don't care what level you're riding at, whether you're a brand new track day rider or whether you're a MotoGP rider. Go get education, understand your craft better, understand what's going on, and then take those tools and apply them, share them with everyone you know, and man, it's going to help our sport grow. It's going to make it more enjoyable for you, and it's a sport we already love. I mean, most of us that are older and been doing this for a long time, it's like it's hard to get away from it, right?
We're still here.
Yes.
If Rossi hired Luca Calidora to come out and be his rider coach, you could get a rider coach, right?
100%.
Having somebody to be able to help you analyze your riding from a technical point of view, not an emotional point of view, having an outside view of your riding, just being able to. We lose sight of the foundation, the fundamentals sometimes because we're worried about this higher end, really minute kind of things, and sometimes it's just going back to the fundamentals. How we use the brakes, how we use the gas, how we use our body.
I mean, one of my fundamental measurements for success as a coach and an instructor is if my students don't need me anymore for a little while. They go and they take the stuff and they say, great, you know what? I've got enough information to go work on this for 2 or 3 weekends, and when I reach my next plateau, I'll come back and see you.
And I think that's important too, because what we see is with a lot of riders, especially quicker riders, they come, they get coaching, we work with them, we solve some problems that they're having with their riding, they go practice, they get better, they get more proficient at those things, and then they get to another plateau.
Oh, yeah.
And the good ones will come back and refer to a coach or a school or something and say, why am I plateauing? What is happening here? What can I adjust in my riding? The bad ones are the ones that go, I've just got to do more of this. I got to get more aggressive. And what we see is what you're trying to avoid is trying to get through that plateau by crashing a bunch of motorcycles.
Well, there's a really interesting secondary point to that always comes to mind with this, is that oftentimes change is difficult. And there are, more often than not, you need to take one step back to go 2 or 3 steps forward.
Sure.
And I would say when it comes to an experienced racer, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced racer, one of the biggest impediments to people making improvements is the unwillingness to have a bad race weekend while you are learning a new skill that is holding you back from getting to this level, and you're sticking yourself here because you're unwilling to take a half a step backwards to learn the skills that will bring you up here for the remainder of your riding career, however long that is.
JD Beach came out and guest coached with us a couple years ago at New Jersey, and JD he had lost the Supersport Championship to Garrett a couple times.
Sure.
And what he had decided was that he was having issues with his body position. He'd grown up as a flat tracker, and a totally different kind of body position than road racing, and that he was essentially not using his body enough and was carrying too much lean angle, which was wearing out the side of the edge of the tire quicker. So at the end of the race, he didn't have as much edge grip as Garrett, and Garrett was beating him. And so he went back over the off season and tried to make this adjustment. He worked with a coach, tried to make this adjustment, and he was 2 to 3 seconds slower everywhere they went in testing. And this guy's a factory rider for Yamaha. They don't really dig it when you're 2 seconds slower in testing.
Yeah.
But he's telling them, it's like, look, I've got to work on this. I'm uncomfortable doing this. This is something different for me. But he knew it was something that he had to change in his riding to get to that next step.
Yep.
And he made the change and won the championship that next year.
Success defined.
Yeah.
So, Chip, we'll kind of leave you with this final kind of concept, and then we'll roll out here. Is what advice, from your experience, would you give a student that's coming to some new school, right? Some new source of education, whether it's us or anyone else that's popping it out there, right? To be able to get the most out of that. How can you prepare yourself, and what can a rider do during the time that they're getting that education to really extract value out of that?
Especially for club racers, especially for really quick riders, veteran riders, it's hard to break these habits. These things feel natural. We're comfortable doing them, even if they might be holding us back a little bit. And in order to maybe internalize it and pick up a new skill or try a new technique, we can't do it at 10/10. So, as we're describing with JD, slowing down to 9/10 of your capacity or 8/10 of your capacity, and really being technical about how you're doing these techniques, and then getting proficient with it, and then adding speed to it.
Leave the brain space, right?
Yeah, slow down to go fast.
Yeah, 100%.
And everybody hates that. Universally, every racer hates this idea of slowing down to go fast.
Except they love the results.
But they love the results, and they love it when it works, and they love it when it gets you through that plateau.
And I'll leave you with this, I'm really big on spending a few minutes, right before and right after you ride every time, to really have a solid plan. Have a single thing that you are focusing on, a plan to execute it, and the anticipation of what kind of feedback you're going to get, whether it's good or bad or working or not. So you've kind of planned out the whole thing. Then you go do it, and then you spend 2 or 3 minutes doing a little download. I'm a big kind of write it down on a piece of paper person. Whether that's you or not is not so important.
Whatever your method is.
But you have some way to prepare before you go out, document when you come back, and then come back to the classroom or your coach, whoever it is, with really defined questions, because the more specific you are, the better they will be able to help you. And that's everybody all the time. You ask specific questions, you get very, very helpful answers.
And there's not a single successful rider out here. We're here at Daytona in the paddock. There's not a single successful rider out here that doesn't do that, that doesn't analyze their riding technically, that's not going into every session with a plan, and then leaving every session with a solid debrief of, did they execute that plan? And if I didn't execute that plan, what went wrong? And what can I do in this next session to fix it?
We're at Daytona International Speedway right now. We're in the M4 Suzuki garage. That is one of the very best teams that has ever been racing in Supersport.
For what,
racing.
30 years?
And the 3 riders in that paddock, all in the top 10 of the 200 right now, every one of them has a personal rider coach right now. It's amazing. So let's bring this back to our endurance thing. And, of course, we want guys to come out and be part of our schools, but we want people to ride and really enjoy it. And I think that endurance is a really great opportunity. So if someone wants to get involved in that, someone that can find you, learn more, and potentially get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Intotd.org. So, intotrackday.org is the website. There's an endurance tag at the top. Click that. It'll show you our schedule. 6 rounds. We're doing a 6-hour race at pit race. The rest of them are 4 hours, and then plus we're Grand National Finals at Barber at the end of the year. So 6 rounds total. It's usually held on a Saturday. So endurance on Saturday, sprint races on Sunday. So come out and do sprint races with Weir for Sunday, but come ride with us on Saturday and try it out. That relay class is real easy to get into. Or there's always people looking for people to kind of join in and pitch in a little tire money and entry money and join their endurance team. So
sounds great. Chip, great conversation. Great to see you again.
Thanks,
Let me
Eric.
have you back on sometime.
Awesome. Anytime.
The Gas on Bike Up. We're out. Have a good one.
Thanks for coming along for a few laps with Gas On, Bike Up, and Chip Spalding. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and look forward to many more conversations like this in the weeks to come. Please like and subscribe to this video and share it with anyone you think who might benefit. Click on the links at the end of the video to subscribe and see more. Until next time, ride fast, ride safe.